Hey everyone, it's Miss Joyce. Today we'll be dividing 3-digit by 1-digit whole numbers. Let's start with 272 divided by 2. First, let's represent our dividend, or our starting number, using base 10 blocks. There are 2 hundreds, so we're going to draw 2 flats. There are 7 tens, so we'll draw 7 rods. And there are 2 ones, so we're going to draw 2 unit cubes. We are dividing by 2, so we're going to split all of these base 10 blocks into 2 groups. Now let's represent the problem using the standard algorithm. On the inside is going to go our dividend. So that's our starting number. We're going to put 272. This is the total that we're starting with. Our divisor is going to go on the outside. So we're going to put 2 on the outside since there are 2 groups. Now let's first share the biggest place value, which in this number is the hundreds place. We're going to give each group 100. Notice there are no more hundreds to share evenly, so we're going to go ahead and pause on sharing. We are going to record this in our standard algorithm here at the top. Notice that in each group there is 1 flat. So we're going to record that up here on the top by showing there's 100 in each group. Now we're going to subtract the total amount of flats that we've shared. We have shared a total of 2 flats. So we're going to put 2 right here and subtract it to see how many flats are left. Another way we could get 2 is by multiplying this 1 on top times 2. We're multiplying 1 flat per group times 2 groups to get 2 total flats shared. When we subtract, we get 0 flats left over, which makes sense because we have 0 flats left to share. Since there's nothing in the hundreds to regroup, we're going to move to the tens. See how there are 7 tens? We can represent that by bringing the next digit down in the standard algorithm. So here, this is showing we have 7 tens. Let's go ahead and share these rods evenly between the 2 groups. We're going to give each group 1 rod at a time until we don't have enough to share evenly. Notice we have 1 rod left. That's not enough to give each group another rod, so we're going to pause on sharing for right now. Each group has 3 rods. So in the tens place, since the rod represents the tens place in this number, we're going to put 3, showing there's 3 rods in each group. We have shared a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rods. So we're going to be subtracting 6 to see how many rods are left to share. We can also get 6 by multiplying 3 times 2 to get 6. When we subtract 7 minus 6, we get 1 left over. This is represented by the 1 rod here. We have 1 rod left over. We can rewrite this 1 rod as 10 more unit cubes. So we have 10 unit cubes here that we just exchanged from that rod. We already had 2 unit cubes here. So we have a total of 12 unit cubes. We can represent that here in the standard algorithm by bringing down the next digit, the 2. And that's how we're getting 12 to represent the 12 unit cubes. Now let's evenly share the unit cubes between each group. So we're going to be giving each group 1 unit cube at a time until there's not enough unit cubes to share evenly. All right, so we've ran out of unit cubes. We see that each group has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 unit cubes. We can represent that here at the top, 6 unit cubes. Now let's go ahead and subtract the total number of unit cubes we used to see how many base 10 blocks are left to share. We use 6 unit cubes here and 6 more here. That's a total of 12 unit cubes. We can also get that by multiplying 6 times 2 to get 12. We subtract 12 minus 12, we have 0 left over. That makes sense because there's 0 base 10 blocks left to share. So our answer, or quotient, is 136 because in each group we have 100, 3 tens, and 6 ones. We also see that number up here. Let's try another problem. Here we have 397 divided by 3. First, let's represent our dividend, or starting number, using base 10 blocks. We have 3 hundreds, 9 tens, and 7 ones. We're going to share this evenly between 3 groups since our divisor is 3. So we're going to draw 3 large circles. We can also represent this using the standard algorithm. 397 is going to go on the inside since that's our starting number. Our divisor 3 is going to go on the outside. That's the total number of groups we're sharing between. Let's go ahead and share the hundreds first, so the flats. We're going to give each group one flat. Oh, there's no more flats to share. So we can record this in our standard algorithm. We can see there's one flat in each group. So we're going to write one flat up here. Another way we can get one up here is by asking ourselves, what can we multiply by our divisor 3 to get to 3 without going over? Well, we know that 3 times 1 is 3. So that's another way we can get the 1 up here. So this shows there's one flat in each group. Let's go ahead and subtract the total number of flats we used. So we've shared 1, 2, 3 flats. So we're going to be subtracting 3 to see how many flats are left to share. Another way we can get 3 is by multiplying 1 times 3 to get 3. When we subtract 3 minus 3, we get 0. That makes sense because there are 0 flats left to share. Now let's move on to the rods. We can see there are 9 rods here because there's a 9 in the tens place. We can represent that here by bringing down the next digit, which is the 9. So we're going to be sharing 9 rods or 9 tens. So let's go ahead and share 9 rods evenly between the 3 groups. We can do this by giving each group 1 rod at a time until we run out of rods to share. All right, so we're out of rods. We can see each group has 3 rods in it. We can record that here by writing 3 rods per group. Another way we could get this 3 is by asking ourselves, what can I multiply by my divisor 3 to get to 9 without going over? Well, we know that 3 times 3 is 9, so that's another way that we know the 3 goes up here. Now let's subtract the total number of rods used. We used 3 rods here, plus another 3 rods, that's 6, plus another 3 rods here is 9. So we've used a total of 9 rods. We can also get this 9 by multiplying 3 on the top, because there's 3 rods per group, times 3 groups. 3 times 3 is 9. When we subtract 9 minus 9, we get 0 left over. And that makes sense because there's no rods left to share. We can see we have 7 unit cubes to share. We can represent that by bringing down the next digit, which is the 7. So this shows there are 7 ones or 7 unit cubes to share. So let's go ahead and give each group 1 unit cube at a time until we're out of unit cubes to share evenly. We can see there's 1 unit cube left over, but that's not enough to share evenly between 3 groups. So we're going to be paused on sharing for right now. We can see each group has 1, 2 unit cubes. So we're going to record the 2 up here in the ones place. Another way we can get this 2 is by asking ourselves, what can I multiply by 3 to get closest to 7 without going over? Well, we know 2 times 3 is 6, and that's the closest we can get to 7 without going over. Another way we got this 6 is by saying that we used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 unit cubes. So now let's subtract to see how many unit cubes are left to share. 7 minus 6 is 1. And that makes sense because we have 1 unit cube left to share here. So since this is our smallest place value here, we're going to represent this as a remainder. We can do that by having an R here and then showing there's 1 unit cube left over. We're just bringing whatever number is down here up to the top for our remainder. So our quotient or answer to the division problem is 132, remainder 1. And that makes sense because in each group, we see the number 132 in each group, and there's 1 unit cube left over. Let's do one more problem. Here we have 567 divided by 4. So first we're going to represent our dividend, 567, using base 10 blocks. We have 5 hundredths, 6 tens, and 7 ones. We're dividing by our divisor, 4, so we're going to have 4 groups. We can represent this using the standard algorithm by placing 567 in the middle here, and we're going to place 4 on the outside since that's our divisor. First, let's go ahead and share our flats since that's the biggest place value. We're going to give each group 1 flat until there's not enough to share evenly. We can see there's 1 flat left over, but we can't share this 1 flat between 4 groups evenly, so we're going to pause on sharing for right now. We can see each group has 1 flat, so we're going to place 1 up here at the top in the hundreds place since the flat represents the hundredths place in this number. We can also get the 1 here by asking ourselves, what can we multiply by 4 to get closest to 5 without going over? Well, 1 times 4 is 4. So that's how we know that the 1 was going to go up here. We also know that the 4 is going to go down here because we've shared a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 flats. So that's another way we know we're subtracting 4. So we had 5 flats to start with. We shared 4 of them. We have 1 left over, and we can see that right here. So now let's go ahead. We are going to rewrite this 1 flat as 10 rods. So this allows us to now share the rods evenly. So we just added 10 more rods to the 6 rods we already have. We have a total of 16 rods. We can show that here by bringing down the next digit, which is the 6. So we have the number 16 here, which represents the 16 rods. We can go ahead and distribute or share these rods evenly by placing 1 rod in each group until we don't have enough rods to evenly share between all 4 groups. Looks like we were able to share all 16 rods evenly between all 4 groups. We can see each group has 1, 2, 3, 4 rods. So we're going to place a 4 up here in the tens place. Another way we can get this 4 up here is by asking ourselves, 4 times what gets us closest to 16 without going over? Well, we know 4 times 4 is 16. So we were able to share all 16 rods. We also got this number 16 that we're subtracting because we shared a total of 4, 8, 12, 16 rods between all 4 groups. So when we subtract 16 minus 16, we get 0. So that shows there's 0 rods left to share. And that makes sense because there's no rods down here. Now we're going to distribute the unit cubes. We have 7 unit cubes because there are 7 ones. We can represent that here by bringing down the next digit, the 7. So here we have a 7, which represents the 7 unit cubes. We're going to share those unit cubes evenly between all 4 groups. Notice here we have 3 unit cubes left after we gave each group 1. Although 3 unit cubes, we don't have enough to share evenly between 4 groups, so we're going to be paused on sharing for right now. Each group has 1 unit cube in it, so we're going to place a 1 up here in the ones place. Another way we can know that a 1 is going to go up here is by asking ourselves, 4 times what gets us closest to 7 without going over? Well, we know 1 times 4 is 4. So we were able to share a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 unit cubes. That's how we're also getting the 4 down here. When we subtract 7 minus 4, we have 3 left over. That's represented by these 3 unit cubes that are still left over. Since the unit cube is representing our smallest place value in this number, we are done sharing for now. We're going to represent the leftover 3 unit cubes as our remainder. So our quotient is 141, remainder 3, and that makes sense because here we have 100, 4 tenths, and 1 unit cube, or 1 1 in each group, and we have 3 unit cubes left over.